Hey, Chicago, what do you say? Coming at you live on this Sunnyside Summer Thursday. This is the CHGO Cubs Podcast. Visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter the promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Bright buys every day, only 21 and older, or Illinois medical card holders. We are talking Cubs baseball, as we always do. Hello to everybody in the live YouTube chat. Best way to enjoy the CHGO experience is to A, sign up and be a diehard at allchgo.com so you have access to all of Ryan's articles and all the great stuff that comes along with it, including the discounts to the merch and the events and yada, yada, yada. Second best way is to make sure you subscribe to the CHGO Sports YouTube page so you can get in on the live shows when you have time, jump in the chat, and be part of the show. Be part of the group. Have fun. Gary's always here. There he is. He's here. He's live. And we are too at 1:20 while the Cubs are off today getting ready to play the Royals next. Over the weekend, it was a disappointing finish against the Brewers. Can't score runs. Yep. We could do that podcast every single day if we want. Yep, good pitching, no offense. Instead, we're going to talk a little bit about the future because the trade deadline is less than a week away now. So you got Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, Cody Delmendo, and Kevin Wells running the ones and twos for us. We got a couple different things we'll do. We're going to talk Cubs core here, and then I have a little game of a confidence pool, if you will. You know how you do confidence pool for football?
Oh, yeah.
Rank the games for the week? Okay, we're going to do something like that coming up in a bit. But first, Cubs future core. Who was the Cubs core going into this season, I guess, is question number one. And who will be the Cubs core going into 2025?
Well, I think your core was Dansby, Nico, Happ, Suzuki. I think that's you would consider like the core pieces. Not that they're like superstar
Steele,
core or anything.
or do you don't want to include a pitcher in the
Steele?
I think so too.
Yeah, include a pitcher. Yeah, Steele for sure is in there. Yeah, that was like those were your like key pieces. I think going into this year.
What is that? 5? Is that right?
It's 5 guys.
5 guys?
Yeah, it's 5 guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I like that. I think that's a good core going into this season.
Yeah, go ahead.
Michael Bush.
For next year, or do you think he was a core guy going into this year?
Oh, well,
going into this year.
I guess going into the year, I mean, they desperately have been searching for a first baseman, so I definitely included him part of something going forward. Maybe not going into the year, but for next year for sure. I guess going into the year for me, Bellinger would have been part of the core, Suzuki, and then Horner and Swanson. I guess you can throw in Ian Happ since he's been here forever. And then Steele. I guess that would be going into the year. That would have been the core.
I think it's possible that it's not. While I say they need to make bold moves, right? Because if this ends up being the result, a last place team, a second to last place team out of the postseason, and under expectations for everybody, including the players, the front office, all of us, right? Fans, obviously. If that happens again, something has to be done. I said a couple years ago, the White Sox needed to make some bold moves. They waited too long.
Yeah.
They waited too long, and now it got to the point where they went to, what do you want to trade Eloy for? Too late. What do you want to trade Moncada for? Too late. They waited on some of those guys when they still had value.
Similar to the Cubs' previous core, right?
That's right. Both teams have been guilty of waiting too long to move on from guys when they had value. And we just sat here on the podcast in postgame yesterday. Ryan was at the ballpark, and we said, listen, they don't have bad players. Individually, when you look at the Cubs team, it's not like you have a roster that's what you had in 2012 or whatever, when it's just a bunch of guys that aren't major leaguers. They have major leaguers. They have good major leaguers. Yeah, they don't have a superstar right now.
They don't have star players on the
position
team.
Player, they don't have a star player. But some of these guys do have value if you want to mix it and move it around a little bit. Because my feeling is they've got the wrong mixture. They have the wrong makeup of a team. They have a lot of guys that do the same thing. None of them seem to have power. They have a lot of contact guys, and they have a lot of guys that play pretty good defense. Okay. mix it up a little bit. So who's the core next year? I wouldn't be surprised if it's a similar core, despite what I think they need to do, which is make some sort of bold move, whether that's at the trade deadline or whether that's in the offseason. Would you agree that the core could be similar next year? I think Bush has played his way into the core for 2025.
Yeah, I think so. I also think, like, there's maybe a difference between core and foundation. Like, when Chris Bryant was MVP guy, like, he was the leader of your core, right? Anthony Rizzo was an all-star Gold Glover. Like, he was a leader of your core. They don't,
Unquestionably core guys.
They don't necessarily have that right now, but they do have solid foundational pieces. Like, let's say, just hypothetically, they were to add some super, like, Juan Soto obviously is like the free agent that would be like the one that would be the best to add. Like, he would be the lead. He would be your core piece, right? He would automatically be your core.
Build everything around him.
I'm not saying these other guys aren't. If you were to bring in like 2 or 3 like really star players, like, they would be your core, and these other guys would still be part of that. But I think when you're talking about going into next year, I kind of look at it more as like a foundation for like a good foundation, like solid players that you can, that shouldn't be like your superstar players. And like if you're really going for the World Series, maybe not your superstar players, but a good foundation of players that you can build up with.
So you're saying basically because they don't have superstar players, they don't really have a core, right? Like, you're not building around, although contracts can do that too, Cody. Like, I would say Dansby's part of your core whether you like it or not, because the contract is there, and I don't know that it's a movable contract.
Well, it's not.
Right? So to me, whether you want to build around it or not, that piece is going to be there for 5 more years after this, at least.
Unless, back to my point, though, sorry, Steele feels like a core piece to build around, right? Like a guy you build around. I don't know that you necessarily build around like Nico or Hap. Like, again, those are good foundational pieces to me that like can really lift up a team, but I don't know that they're star pieces.
So if they traded Steele, they'd be trading from their core. I think we'd all agree on that.
I would think so, yeah. Sorry, I don't know if I was making my point clear, but that's like,
I got you. So would there be any pieces that you see now that you could say, yeah, that guy's going to be a piece of the core from 2025 to 2030?
Justin Steele.
You think Kevin thinks Steele's definitely a core guy, even though he's going to be 30 next year?
Yeah.
I don't disagree with it unless they go crazy.
Yeah.
Has Bush played well enough this year, Cody, for you to say Michael Bush is a core piece for the next 5 years?
If Paul Skeens didn't exist, he'd probably be in the lead to win Rookie of the Year. Yeah. Him or Shoto.
I think
Shoto, you can argue to be in the core too. I mean, he's pitched well enough to be at the top of Rookie of the Year voting as well. And he was the All-Star first year. Like, I know he's 30, but to me, like, if there's any core on this team going forward, it's honestly just a third of your starting rotation. Like, to me, that's what it is. And I think Michael Bush has potential to reach a level of how people look at Max Muncy, which is a really good baseball player. And then as far as everyone else, I just, it's not that I'm out on Seiya, but I think we know what Seiya is at this point. He's a very good complementary player. He's just like Ian Happ to me.
He's like a you go into a year like he could be an all-star that year, but he's not like a perennial.
He's not a
star.
core but they would build around them other than the contract and the no trade clauses.
That's what I'm saying. Like to me, core is like building around players versus like guys that are the foundation. I think that's what they don't have right now.
To me, those guys would all have way better numbers if this team had some stars on it, and we would all look at them differently. But we don't have stars, so.
For instance, Yelich is part of the Brewers' core.
Yeah. He's hurt now. Maybe out for the rest of the year.
He may not be part of the Brewers' core in 2025. That's how serious that could potentially be.
Yeah, when you're talking about taking that from the core, like, that's a huge missing piece.
It would make a big difference.
Core.
Imagine putting someone like that, someone that's in an MVP conversation on the Cubs team. Like, has Nico hasn't had a horrible year, but he also hasn't taken the next step necessarily. Like, he's still good defensively. Is Nico part of the core of the next great Cubs team?
No.
I'm not sure that I can confidently answer that.
He's also, again, another good complementary player. We will look at him differently if this team had stars. If they trade him next week, he'll go to another team. And then I give it 2 months, we'll all be sitting on Cubs Twitter saying, I can't believe we traded that guy. Can't wait. See y'all then.
Yeah, I mean Nico's another guy that like is a very good foundational piece. Like Gold Glove defensively, doesn't strike out a lot, puts the ball in play. I thought he would tap into more of that power this year. We haven't really seen that, but he's still a 2-WAR player as we speak right now. So it's like it's still a good complementary piece, but he's not a star core player. Like you're not necessarily building around Nico. Nico is a guy that you build around a star player, and you feel good about building him around a star player.
When we were back in Nashville for the winter meetings, if you would ask me the Cubs core, I would have said Nico and Dansby without blinking. Right? I probably would have said Nico, Dansby, Steele if I had to name 3, and then I probably would have included probably Hap and Seiya just based on hopeful, and they are under contract, and they're like it's not an exciting core, but that would have been my core going into the season around the winter meetings last year.
There's reason for that. Like Nico had a great season last year. Before this year, he had 2 really, really good seasons where you felt like that guy was going to ascend to, arguably all-star levels.
Yeah.
Just hasn't happened this year, and maybe it's because you're depending on him for more than what you should. It doesn't help that the rest of the team has regressed as well. So, I think he's more of the player that we've seen the last 2 years than this year. But at the same time, he's like, when you're talking about cores, you're talking about guys you build around. He's a really good complementary player who could actually be a really big added bonus if this team had some stars on it. But we don't.
Yeah, well, we also hope that Seiya would be part of that core, taking that next step of a full season. And I think we all hope that you could say at this point, going into 2025 or just late in the season in 2024, that Morel would play himself into the core. And I just can't sit with confidence right now. Not that he couldn't do it, but I just can't say right now, I can't say core. Yeah. I can't say that with PCA yet either, even though he was their top prospect and he's getting playing time. And he's 22. He's way too young to give up on. But the way things have gone so far in 2024, I can't just anoint him part of the core moving forward.
Yeah.
Not yet. I'm not giving up, but I'm not making him part of the core yet either.
Yeah. And I just want to be clear, when me and Cody are both saying like complementary players, it's not like in a bad way.
No.
Not like
every team needs these.
Yeah, you need the guys that supplement the rest of the roster, whether that's right below the star guys or all the way down to the 26th man, right? Like that like when we say complementary, they're still good players. And they'd still be really good around in a good team, but they're not the guys that anchor your lineup. Like that's what we're trying to say.
The 2019-2020 Cubs could have used a handful of these guys.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. It's
that's exactly
shoot
right.
Me. Just bury me into a hole.
Too many power hitters swinging for the fences, not enough contact guys. Now we have too many contact guys and not enough power hitters. And I never thought I never really thought about it this way, but I heard, I think it was on the radio. I don't know if it was, I think it was Bernstein and Lawrence Holmes talking about, if there is a group of Cubs, they are kind of getting old. You don't really think about it, but a lot of their key players, Hap, starting to trend towards older part of his career, right? Obviously Hendricks, even Seiya's not young. Bush is an older rookie.
He's 26, right? Luke.
But he's 26. Like he's not breaking into the majors at 21, 22. As far as a rookie, that's an older aged rookie. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying the whole team is old, but Dansby's 30, right?
30.
And I think that
they're not a super young team anymore. You can't say
that points to your White Sox conversation, though. Like, now is the time to kind of move a couple of those. You don't have to make a drastic move, but moves need to be made this deadline. You can't you can't roll into next year with the same team. A couple key pieces might have to be moved. By key pieces, I mean everyday players.
Which is going to be hard to do with some of these contracts and no trade clauses and like all that kind of stuff. Like, that's going to be hard to do if they want to move them. I mean, maybe the winter may be a little bit easier. Trade deadline, maybe hard to do. We'll get into that.
It's not impossible to do that, but we'll get to more of that in the second block here in a second. First, we're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with more than 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. That's the key. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, messaging, so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. When I was looking for a personal assistant recently, I went to Indeed. Right away, I found someone that was going to help me out. No, I'm not doing that. But I could. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
We still got a couple months left in the season, a few days till the trade deadline, and you need to get ready for that with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. They probably have a style in your favorite team's colors. You know, I've been getting Shady Rays since we brought them on as a partner, and they're great. And I think my favorite part about them is when I wear them, and they're better than any sunglasses I've ever worn. But then, like, when I lose them and break them, because I do that often, they help me out.
Right. I get, like, people see me and say, who is this guy? I put on my Shady Rays. Yeah. Who is this guy?
Yeah, exactly.
It's that different.
Yeah. But like I said, like, they help me out if I ever lose them, because if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by their lost or broken replacement guarantee. If you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 35% off polarized sunglasses. That's shadyrays.com, code CHGO. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
Real quick, Ryan, do you really think it would be super difficult, going back on what you said before the break, that it'd be super difficult to move some of these pieces?
At the deadline?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Well, who? Like
Jameson Taillon, if you made him available.
You said everyday players.
I think Nico Horner, too. If you made him available, you'd have 4 or 5 teams calling you with
But
a
you need
good
to bring.
package.
But here the issue is with that. The goal, and this is from Jed Hoyer still, like, the goal is they're still trying to compete next year. They're still trying to compete in 26, whatever it is.
Right.
So if you're going to trade Nico Horner, and the same kind of goes for Justin Steele to a bigger extent, right? He's one of your aces. If you're going to trade guys like that with team control, reasonable contracts, still part of Nico's obviously an everyday player, you need to bring something back, or at least have something that could fill the value that Nico Horner brings to the team.
Next year, yeah.
Next year.
So the prospect better be ready to fill that void.
If Matt Shaw's ready to fill that void, maybe you do it. Or if you're bringing guys back in a Nico Horner trade that can fill that value or help fill that value, it's a possibility. But unless you're getting that, I think my point is, unless you're getting that, it seems, and this is what I said yesterday on the show, to trade guys like that would be a little bit counterintuitive to trying to compete in 2025.
Okay,
right. How do you replace what Steele gives you right now?
Exactly. Like Steele,
to me, you'd have, in order to replace that, you'd have to have a pitcher ready to take that spot. But again, you might have to replace Hendricks too. Maybe you might have to replace Hendricks and Taillon, and then that player would, to me, if you're doing Steele, then you have to have an everyday player that's ready to fill a major void on the team.
So could you trade Nico? Sure, like I'm not saying Nico's contract.
Everybody on the team is tradable.
Nico's contract would be easy to move in a general sense, but the idea
what I was trying.
The idea of wanting to compete next year and getting the value that still allows you to compete next year, that's what they're looking for. And it would depend on if a team is willing to give that up to trade him. But then the other guys, like Dansby, obviously has a pretty long-term big money contract. Yeah. It's gonna be hard to trade that. Hap, Suzuki both have no trade clauses. Like those are your. If we're talking about foundational everyday pieces, like those guys are probably not going anywhere.
No, yeah, I would agree with that. Okay.
All right, Cody. So we've all agreed that the Cubs shouldn't make, and even Jed Hoyer has verbalized this, they shouldn't make any short-term additions to this team that cost them for no reason whatsoever, right?
Yeah, rental pieces.
Yeah, why make a rental? Now, you can make trades and still then try to somehow get back in this with the guys that just need to play better. But there are still ways to make trades that could impact the future. So I do think they're going to make trades. It'll be interesting to see if, like, for instance, trading Jameson Taillon would not be looked at as something, oh, well, how's that helping you for now? How's that helping you for the future? Well, it depends on what you would get back for it. Because adding prospects and cutting the payroll, that is thinking about the future. That isn't thinking about this year. So we're going to do a confidence, but let's each give 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You ever done the NFL confidence pool?
Yeah.
There's give one team 16, give the next team 15, 14. If your team wins, you get that number of points. So when the trade deadline is up next Wednesday, is that correct? Tuesday. On either Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll look at it and we'll say, all right, how many of the 15 points did you get? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So which Cubs player are you the most confident will get dealt? You can use the 5 once. You can use a 4 once, a 3 once, a 2, and a 1.
Most importantly, who's keeping track of it? The points.
Well, we'll just keep this. It'll be easy at the end. I can add to 15. I mean, I went to Valpo, but I can still add to 15. That's why I didn't make it 16.
You're talking to the guys who have been trying to keep track of who you got for
right.
2.5
Trying and succeeding.
You know what? We're going to give Ryan a napkin at Miller's Ale House tomorrow for the watch party, and then we'll say, Ryan, keep track of this.
Trying and succeeding to keep track of who you got. I am comfortably in the lead.
And he'll get lipstick from one of the bartenders, and he'll be like, okay, 5
will.
was 4 was.
Oh my gosh!
All right, so let's see. I'm curious what Gary Ross already says. Nico's going to look good in a Dodger uniform, and he says Tauchman's going to be traded too. All right, Gary, go ahead. Throw your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on there. Now, this is Cody's.
No, that's not mine.
This is yours.
This is mine.
Yours.
Okay.
This is yours.
All right. So my.
You forgot who you put down already?
Well, they're all fairly similar, and I actually would like to change one of these. One of these I'm going to change just for fun.
Okay.
I'm not looking at yours. My most confident player the Cubs will trade going up to this deadline on Tuesday is Mark Leiter Jr. Everybody needs a specialist in their bullpen. Everybody needs bullpen help. I'm not saying he's going to get a huge haul back. I don't think anybody's getting a huge haul back. That's maybe the most overused term in sports and podcasting and radio today is the word haul. Who really gets a haul anyway? It doesn't happen that often. And first of all, most hauls, you don't know if they're good or not for several years. So I'd say Mark Leiter Jr. is the most likely, in my opinion, to get traded. Tauchman is another one because I think teams always are looking for depth in their outfield. They're looking for versatility. They're looking for a guy that they can pinch hit and get a good at bat out of. And I think teams looking for that can look at the last 2 years and say, hey, Mike Tauchman would be really nice on our team. And I think the Cubs could look at it and say, we really like Mike Tauchman. He's been everything we've asked him to be the last 2 years. We would love to keep him. But it makes sense for us moving forward to free up that 4th outfielder spot for one of the young players and get something of value, anything of value back for Tauchman right now, as opposed to having him back again next year and going back with that. Even though at one point he was your best offensive player for a while. I would say I'm going to put my 3-pointer on Taillon. I think he would get your biggest, he's the most likely to get the biggest return of the Cubs players I believe that will be traded. Taillon. He's got time left on there. He's been really good this year. We've heard the rumors linked to the Yankees wanting him back. So I'll go Taillon 3, and then I'll go Hector Neris number 2, just because maybe the Astros want him back. Maybe some team thinks, he hasn't been great this year, but he's a veteran reliever who's been there and done that. And the worst thing, there are worse things than adding a Hector Neris to it. Do I think they're going to get much back for him? No, I don't. But I think there are teams always desperate for bullpen help. And having a guy that you know has been there before, if you put him in the right situation, which the Cubs, as Cody points out, on basically a nightly basis, because of the injuries, he hasn't been in the ideal situation. So I'll give Neris 2. I had Smiley at 1. I will change that up, and I'll put Nico at 1. I have little confidence that Nico will be traded, but I'm thinking that 1 point could be a big difference. And I'd like to be somewhat bold. I don't want it to be Smiley. I don't know how many teams are fighting for Smiley. And I would say a lot at what Kevin was saying. I do think a lot of teams will be calling about Nico Horner and saying, well, what do you need for Nico Horner? And I don't think the Cubs are just going to give him away, and they shouldn't just give him away. But if it's possible, I'll put a 1-pointer on Nico Horner.
I like that list a lot, actually. A lot of older pieces, movable pieces, bullpen pieces, pitching. I like it. I tend to agree with most of it.
Most of it? What don't you agree with it on?
I don't think Nico's going to get traded.
I don't know. I don't either, but that's why I only made him a 1. Now, The other way to load up this list is be like, well, if I'm the only person that thinks Nico's going to get traded, maybe I should just go all out and make him my 5, and that's a 5-pointer that nobody else is going to get. That's the way I used to do. When I did confidence pools, when I started doing confidence pools in high school, I would look for the upset I was going to take, and I'd be like, listen, there's 200 people in this pool at our high school. I got to do something bold to win it. I'm going to make my 16-pointer the Bears beating the 49ers, and if it happens, I'm 16 points ahead of everybody else. And so once or twice a year, I'd win the $200, and I'd be happy, and I'd walk away.
And that was back before the forward pass was
that was
legal,
before
right?
computers, to be honest with you, mostly.
My joke just
Can I do mine now?
You want to do yours, Cody?
That was a good one.
Yeah, let's get it out of the way. All right. We'll go number 5, Mike Tauchman. They have too many damn outfilders. Get him out of here. Number 4, Mark Leiter Jr.
That's your guy. It's the summer of Mike Tauchman.
I don't care. That was last year. Number 4, Mark Leiter Jr. He's your best reliever. It's sad that we're trading a guy that you literally built yourself. It's a sad state of affairs, and I deserve better, and everyone else watching deserves better. Number 3, Drew Smiley. He's making $9 million, and he's been awesome this year. Get him out of here. Number 2, Hector Neris. He will go back to the Astros probably, and then probably be good because he won't be the closer. And then we'll all wonder, why couldn't we figure him out? Can't wait. And then number 1, Jameson Taillon, because this team is never getting creative with any trades, so I don't think he's actually going to go anywhere. That's where I'm at.
So you gave him a 1 because everybody's going to have him on their list. You don't want to get left out if he does get traded.
Congratulations.
Great energy for the podcast. We didn't have a graphic for mine, so I'll just say mine out loud. 5 is you had Mark Leiter Jr. at 5, right?
I had Leiter 5.
That's where I'm at too. Like as we've said, he's been their best reliever all year.
As gone, right?
Especially the fact coming off like he had the injured list stint, and obviously that was just like we need to get him a break. He wasn't recovering as well in between outings. Like it was a nice spot to get him a break. He's come back and he literally hasn't let up a base runner since he's come back in like 6 outings.
Also, you've just burned him to the ground the last 2 years.
But he's done exactly what you needed.
Everything, he's been great.
He's done exactly what you needed him to do as far as like going into the trade deadline with a little bit of selling in mind. Like he's been exactly what they needed him to be, just perfect and
expensive,
and bumping up his trade value. Yeah, and still a couple more years of team control. My number 4, which you guys didn't put on here, I'm a little surprised. Tyson Miller.
Oh, yeah.
I think Tyson Miller is
sell high, it costs you nothing, and whatever you get back is a bonus.
Yeah, and he's got.
I agree. He's going to get traded.
He's still got 5 more years of club control. He's been really good with the Cubs since they got him in mid-May.
Wow.
And
5 years of club control for Tyson Miller.
Well, then I've changed my mind. I don't think they're trading him. I think they're going to say, hey. I think they're going to say, hey, he could be part of our bullpen future.
But he's also a guy that that wasn't. He was up and down as most relievers are volatile or
sell high
as well. So they may want to sell high. A team may be looking for not necessarily a closer or even maybe a setup man, but a guy who's good in that middle innings, a bridge guy to get to the back end. So that's where I'm at, Tyson Miller. And like you said, you put a little extra weight in it because no one else has him. Mike Tauchman's my number 3, as we've said, 4th outfielder. Cody Bellinger's coming back some point in the near future. They're going to have 4 outfielders, and now that Michael Busch is playing so well, they're not going to use Cody Bellinger at first base. Not that Mike Tauchman's like redundant. In a way, he's kind of redundant just because he's another outfielder, left-handed outfielder that may not have room for him on to play every day. Mm-hmm. It would seem likely to me that they may be looking to see what they can get for him. Drew Smiley is my number 2 because of the fact that he does have a mutual option for next year, but we know those don't generally get exercised. They've paid out most of his salary for this year already, the Cubs, and then next year, whoever would trade for Drew Smiley, a $2.5 million buyout if they don't pick up that mutual option. It's not a huge chunk of change. It may scare off some teams, but I think some teams would still be interested because he has pitched pretty well since like the end of May.
Watch me game show this. And for Ryan's number one, find out after a quick timeout.
That's perfect.
Some beers can say they're brewed for baseball, but only Blue Moon is brewed by baseball. Beer and baseball just go together, and no beer goes better than the one that was literally born in a ballpark. Blue Moon, created at Coors Field in Denver, Colorado. It's a natural choice all season long. Summertime shy is here, guys. I looked at the 10-day forecast. 83, 84, 85, 87, mid to upper 80s for the next 10 days. Give me a Blue Moon to cool off with that. Nothing beats watching baseball or lounging by the pool or sitting by a lake with an ice cold Blue Moon. Brewed by baseball to give you a dose of nostalgia, get you excited all season long. A beer this good only comes around every once in a Blue Moon.
Oh, yeah.
Bring the ballpark to you with Blue Moon Belgian-style wheat ale, one of a kind every time. Get Blue Moon delivered by visiting get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO to see your delivery options. Get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO. Blue Moon, made brighter. Celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
My bad. Choose Ray Chevrolet as your first draft pick and find the right new Chevy and price for you. Visit our partner this July to shop the Freedom of Save Sales event going on all month long at their location on Route 12 in Fox Lake or at raychevrolet.com. As one of the top-selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest, you'll always be able to shop one of Chicagoland's largest Chevy inventories. Plus, find the perfect tailgate vehicle right now. Get $12,000 off MSRP on the new 2024 Chevrolet Silverado, or lease the new 2024 Chevy Trax for only $188 a month for 24 months. That's less than the car that I have right now. Or cruise into July your own way and shop over 125 of their vehicles priced under $20,000. And if you've heard of Ray Chevrolet, then you've also heard of Ray's Price Promise. They're guaranteed to make your next vehicle more affordable than ever with no price changing, no add-ons, and no hidden fees ever. That means the incredible prices we're talking about now, you can expect to see the very same when you shop Ray Chevy in-store or online. Shop the Freedom of Save Sales event all month long by visiting Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. Together, let's drive. Sorry, I was reading the chat.
Is that for
that's for Ryan's number one. We've gone through our confidence pool, 5 down to 1. Which Cubs will be traded at the deadline coming up on Tuesday? Nobody has selected Justin Steele. Nope. You know, the hot rumor that's out there, teams want Justin Steele. Nobody's saying Steele in the confidence pool. Who's your number one?
Well, first I want to acknowledge that Gary, as he likes to be right over me all the time, has pointed out that the Cubs could send money to cover Drew Smyly's buyout, which, yes, they could cover money they could cover all the rest of Kyle Hendricks' contract if they want. They can send money to cover anything. Yeah. So yes, they can cover the rest of Drew Smyly's buyout. That is a fair point. Good job, Gary. And then
credit
one.
To you.
Yeah, credit to you. And then my number one, or I guess my lowest one on the
lowest on the confidence pool
was I put Jameson Taillon.
Taillon.
I mean, I do.
Thank you, Kevin.
I could definitely could see him getting traded. Obviously, he's been pitching really well for the Cubs this year, and any team looking for starting pitching help down the stretch would want him. There's also the value of he's got 2 more years at not an unreasonable deal, like $18 million the next 2 years. Like teams can afford that, and especially if he's good for those next. The fact that he's been really good for the last year versus what the first 3 months or so of with the Cubs was last year, I think teams aren't worried that he's not good, not a good pitcher anymore, right? So 2 more years at a pretty reasonable salary. I think that adds value on top of him just being able to help teams down the stretch now. But obviously, I just have more confidence in some of these other guys being traded, and so he's my number one right there.
It's interesting that me and you both had Taillon number one as the least likely to get traded, considering how much he's been in the rumor mill.
Oh yeah, right. I have him at 3. So all 3 of us said at least at some level of 1 through 5, we all had Leiter being traded, Tauchman being traded, and Taillon being traded. Those are the 3 we all think are. If we had to collaborate between us, all 3 of those are the top 3 that we would think will be traded at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's looking at what they can trade in the next 5, and again, going to the point of if you're want to compete in 25, you're not just selling off guys for like low A or high A prospects. Like you want those trades to be, you want to have some way to fill in that value for next year, whether that is your top prospects or guys that you're bringing in those trades. Like that's why they're not heading for this big sell off, and that's why you look at what's most likely to be traded. It's bullpen guys that either are expiring deals or potentially expiring deals, or are cheap with a lot of team control, and guys that you feel like you can fill in with other smaller deals in free agency, or your prospects that are finally starting to graduate. That the bullpen arms just seem the most likely to go for me.
Gary has not put together his full 5 through 1, but he has Taillon as a 5, Steele as a 1. But we also have breaking news here. Barb is back. Barb, we've been worried about you in the live YouTube chat, the godmother of the CHGO podcast. It's been I feel like it's been 2 weeks since we've seen Barb in the chat.
Yeah, that's fair.
She's here. She's okay. I mean, if I counted every time we had somebody in the chat say, "Is Barb okay? Where's Barb? Are they doing this live? Why isn't Barb commenting on it? Why isn't Barb said, is this show live?" Barb, you're okay?
She may have said,
is this show live? It's good. She's made some comments.
She's there.
Glad to see
Barb is here. That is good news. The Cubs aren't good, but Barb is here, so we got that going.
Niren's also made a couple of good comments in here that I think are very correct in the fact that Cubs will pay for prospects because they like cheap, controllable talent. That is a philosophy of theirs. And also, Taillon has a lot of risk in regressing to average. That much I very do. I
How
believe.
old is Taillon?
I don't know. He's in his 30s.
Early
right?
30s.
Again.
Mm-hmm. That's
when the guys start to...
So
that seems to make a lot of sense.
You'd be selling high because this is the best he's pitched for you, for sure.
I listed Taillon 1 because I have no confidence that this front office will do something creative.
Okay.
You want creative?
Yeah.
You want me to get creative? You want me to... Jed Hoyer, here's how you get creative.
Absolutely no confidence that they're going to make a move that is going to make this team good next year.
Agreed. Bold and creative. And bold and creative for me would be taking Taillon.
If the rumor about Taillon going to the Yankees for Jason Dominguez and Jones, that Bleacher Nation put out there, they were referencing someone else throwing it out there. Like, if that were to actually happen, I would come on this podcast and point and laugh at the Yankees for about 5 minutes, because that would be the dumbest move that they would make. It would be better to stand pat than to make that trade, in my opinion. But if it were to happen, I would actually applaud Jed Hoyer. But I don't think it will happen.
I also like, to Niren's point about Taillon risk to regressing to average, like, he's been pitching really well, but like, he's been a pretty good pitcher. For, like, he's not like super above average, like pitching way better than his career best, like by any means. Like, his 2.96 ERA right now, his career best is 3.2.
I was going to say, this has to be his best year, right?
Yeah, like, well, even just look at his average, like he has a 3.9 career average ERA, so yes, that could regress, but like, you look at his FIP, 3.92 career, he has 3.77 this year, so it's not like this huge regret. I just don't like regression. I don't think he's like pitching so far above his career norms that you expecting regression. Like, is there? But there's risk also for anyone to like regress. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I don't look at Taillon as like this guy who's pitching out of his mind this year, has never done this stuff before, and there's no way he keeps it up. I think he's pitching really well, but he's also had really good seasons in the past before coming to the Cubs.
I'm curious if Barb, who really disliked the Michael Busch trade, would be willing to send Nico Horner in a package to the Dodgers to get Jackson Ferris back. You loves Jackson Ferris. Well, would you be willing to part with Nico to get Jackson Ferris back? He's got a future Hall of Famer.
What about Slaughter?
So what would Gary be willing to give up to get Slaughter back?
The Dodgers, first off, wouldn't even do that for Nico.
No, I'm not saying that is a straight-up deal. I'm just saying,
also, that would be a dumb move by the Cubs to send Nico Horner to get a guy who's in low A right now.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's why I said a package. Like, not that deal, but would you be willing?
Barb would do that, yeah.
Barb would do that deal,
yeah,
yes. Yes, for sure. But I do think the Dodgers could be a team that would be interested in Nico Horner.
Well, yeah, they haven't got anything at second base this year.
Right, so and again, that's the perfect type of guy. When we say, listen, they got a lot of the same guys right now, the Cubs, and we love Nico Horner. He's my favorite player on the team probably, but he's even more valuable when he's on that Dodgers roster, and they need something like that. Just like you said, hey, in 20 17, the Cubs, they could have used a lot of Nico Horners.
Yeah.
More than one Nico Horner. And that's where, the Dodgers need pieces that are really good complementary players. Nico does everything you want him to do except for hit home runs.
Yeah, that's kind of what we talked about earlier. Like, he's not like here. He's expected to be like one of the better hitters on the Cubs, and maybe not specifically hit for power, but like it would be like it would add something to the lineup if he were to have upped his power numbers this year. Obviously, because he gets on base a lot, he doesn't strike out a lot, he plays great defense, like all that other stuff. But yeah, you put him on the Dodgers, who have a lineup full of great hitters. You're not expecting him to hit for power. You're expecting him to do exactly what he's doing with the Cubs right now, and that's perfectly fine and very complimentary of the rest of that lineup. I think that's the point we've kind of been making the whole show, is that like he's not a star player, but he's a very good complementary player around other big time names.
Yeah, we said accumulate good players. It never hurts to accumulate good players.
And who saw the Michael Busch trade? A star. Who saw the Michael Busch trade coming? I would venture out there to say most Cubs fans had no idea who Michael Busch was last year.
That was a big shot.
Agreed. Agreed. And I wouldn't have thought that at that point. I didn't think they were packaging.
So this trade deadline, is it possible that they can go out and maneuver for a major league level prospect? That would be the type of move that wouldn't surprise me. A guy we've not really heard a lot.
Well, and another thing I pointed out, I wrote about on Monday, was like you could see deals like the Velasquez for Quash trade, even though that one obviously didn't work out. But like that's like a shot where you have a guy who doesn't have really a future on your team for a guy who could, right? Or like the Scott Effross Hayden Wesneski trade a couple years ago.
Didn't see that coming.
Didn't see that one coming. And obviously Scott Effross was a major league reliever. Hayden Wesneski was still in AAA, but like now Wesneski, he's had his home run troubles and stuff, but he's also had flashes of like this guy could be a valuable piece of this pitching staff in some capacity.
What if Merriweather shows he's healthy in the next couple games? Some team might say, well, he was pretty good last year and he throws pretty hard and he's got,
possible.
But again, the return's not going to be spectacular. But
what I'm saying to Kevin's point is like you could see that, or like just a baseball trade, right? Not like a value, got to win this trade, just like a swapping. That's kind of what they talked about that Effross for Wesneski trade back then. It was just a baseball trade. It was like the Yankees needed this, we needed that, and we made that deal, right? Like that. I think you can see trades like that, even if it's not for a guy that's been at the major league level for a while, like a Hayden Wesneski. He's in AAA and is very close to debuting. Wesneski came up a month later, made his debut. I think that's something you could see at this deadline. Cody doesn't believe it? Or is he laughing at the chat?
He's laughing at the chat.
He's just laughing at the chat. I wish sports could do cities could do multi-sport trades. Is there any way we could trade Zach Levine in one of these deals with a pitcher or a position player? I'm all for it. Sorry. That's just how I feel. Just how I feel. Trade Zach Levine. It's part of a baseball deal.
Tyson Bajan's got some value.
He
should have been QB1 according to some of their
Twitter. If you listen to Carm, that his value is sky high right now.
I don't listen to Carm.
You don't. I don't know. I have a feeling that if you get to the trade deadline, if I'm going to have an opinion on how it goes, and how we're going to be sitting here next Wednesday, will we say, maybe they did make themselves better for 2025, and I'm okay with the deals they made. Or that was how many boring trade deadlines have we had? A lot, right? We built up like, whoa, this is the big trade-off. What are they going to get for Contreras and Happ? We sat and we waited and we got nothing.
Yep.
And we got a comp pick. His name's Jackson Wiggins. He's in high A right now.
Coming off Tommy John surgery.
Are you leaning towards more likely to one of those trade deadlines where they just kind of stand pat and say, we're going to try and get this group to somehow make it, and we'll figure out the 2025 future and beyond in the offseason? Or do you think there actually will be a boldish move like I've suggested, like trade Taillon for prospects, take the prospects and other pieces, maybe somebody else that's on your major league roster, put those things together, and now go get yourself Crochet for the rotation, so you've filled that other spot in your rotation with really young affordable until you have to re-sign him, which you will. You have to give him a new deal.
I think
but do something like that. If you don't want to trade the guys that are prospects now, trade somebody that'll get you prospects that other teams want.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be more likely to see Taillon be traded than for Jed to not do anything. Like that's just not what Jed Hoyer's been. Like, it goes back to Theo. Like really, like that whole this front office for the last decade or so have never really stood pat at the trade deadline. They've always made some kind of moves. It may not be, again, it's not going to be a big time sell off. They're getting rid of a bunch of their foundational pieces or their big, whatever it is. Like that's not going to happen, but they are going to make a few smaller trades. Like that would be my expectation, whether that's just bullpen guys or a Mike Talkman. Like
trading Taillon wouldn't be considered bold, but at least it could be productive.
I would consider it bold.
You would consider it bold? That would
bolder.
Bolder.
Yeah, it's not as bold as like trading a Justin Steele, but
no,
it's definitely
trading
on the bolder
Steele
side.
or Shota or Nico. I might be more bold to me.
Well, because
if you could find a way for Hap or Seiya to be traded, those would be bolder moves too.
Yeah, because when you're talking about trading away,
trade deal.
When you're talking about trading away guys that can help you make a playoff push over the last 2 months, like Taillon would be included in that group. Like he's been pitching so well, you could see him. If they were to make a playoff push the last 2 months, he would be a part of that. So to trade him away and taking away that potential that he could help you make a playoff push, I would say that's on the bolder side of trades.
Well, that's been this. I guess you could argue too. It is bold because that is the strength of this team this year. And if you were going into 2025 and you don't know how the offense is going to be, at least I'd feel very comfortable with my 1, 2, 3 going into next year, which not every team can say.
Right.
So to take one of those pieces off the board, I guess that is boldish. I think the White Sox needed to do something more bold than that, and maybe the Cubs do too. But
Nico would
it's
be
on the bold spectrum.
Nico would be a bolder trade too. Like I think
Nico would be a bold trade.
I think trading Nico would be more bold than Taillon.
Your boldest trades would be Justin Steele and Shota Imanaga. Like those would be your boldest.
And I don't want
they're not going to happen.
And I don't want to see either one happen. I don't want it.
Yeah, I don't think either one should happen, especially if they are intent on competing next season. Like to trade two guys that are all-star caliber and higher than that pitchers would just be counterintuitive to that. So like I'm saying those are your boldest trade ideas. I don't expect them in any way to happen.
Yeah, I think to answer the question fully, it is the correct philosophy and the correct process to always make moves at the trade deadline, whether you're buying or selling. And they're not going to stand pat completely because that would be dumb, right? You aren't the perfect baseball team. You aren't the Orioles, and even the Orioles are going to go add, and they're the best team in baseball. Jed is genuinely pretty smart about the way he's handled the last couple of deadlines. I expect more of the same next week.
Yeah, I mean, it's just standing pat. Wasn't it Theo that would say something about not doing anything at a deadline is like a missed opportunity?
Yeah,
like Theo said something.
There was
along
no
those lines
reason
before.
to go halfway with the core trade. I remember that quote.
Something like
that. It's like stopping in a race.
Right.
Not doing anything at trade deadline unless
is a missed opportunity. It
is a missed opportunity. It's like stopping in a race and letting either someone catch you or falling behind in general.
Yeah. So again, I expect
even if it's a small deal.
With what Jed has said, I expect smaller deals, not your key pieces or your best players. Like I don't expect all that to happen. I expect it to be more smaller deals that you could fill in or you could find that value in your system or in the off season, right? Those are the deals I expect just because that's. That's just, again, with Jed's MO of not just completely staying pat at the deadline, like those deals to get some kind of value out of it makes sense. And not the biggest names that you could do. Smaller deals, more marginal pieces just make the most sense to me.
Can't wait to watch them mess it up.
I was going to say, these are the shows that Cody hates.
Yeah.
It's bullshit that we're sitting here talking about this.
Uh-oh.
It's absolute bullshit that we're sitting here talking this. I can't wait for Tuesday to pass. I can't wait. I can't do this anymore.
We have a few more trade stock up, trade stock down tweets.
No, I don't think Cody's up for it this year.
Every time I send the stock up, stock down tweets, I die a little bit inside. It's so ridiculous that we're sitting here talking about selling in year 4 of this freaking era that I was told was not a rebuild to begin with. It's so dumb, man. I'm sorry that the energy has been down for me today, but I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired, dude. We're talking about trading guys that Mark Leiter Jr. You literally made him yourself. And we're gonna send him off because we suck. You getting. Mike Tauchman's going to go to the Yankees or whatever, and he's going to do He's going to do things that he probably did last year and like the beginning part of this year. He's going to go and do that. And we're going to be sitting here and we're going to be like, wow, we couldn't win with that guy. Nearest will go somewhere and he's not going to be a closer. He'll probably be pitching meaningful playoff postseason innings. It's a joke, man. It's a joke. We're going to trade Nico to the Dodgers, and his value is going to show even more because he's not going to be relied upon to, like, be this whatever the Cubs envisioned him to be. Like, I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm just sick and tired, man. It's bullshit.
That wasn't long enough. I need
No,
more.
but you can't label what he's feeling, what Cody's feeling. The Cubs are no longer the lovable losers. There's nothing lovable about being losers anymore. You won the World Series. You hit 3 straight NLCS, and since then it's been.
You created the expectations.
Yeah,
since the moment we launched, I was already like in this like I accepted what happened at the trade deadline of 2021 and like going into 2021, knowing that like they were gonna definitely be entering a rebuild of some sorts. I had accepted that. But like this is the first year since I would probably say 2020 where like I'm in, and that was a 60 game season. So I call it 2019 where there's some actual real expectations. We're sitting here talking about selling. We're sitting here talking about trading a guy that you just signed a year and a half ago, 2 years, whatever, that is giving you a really great season. We're sitting here talking about trading your second baseman that just won a Gold Glove award. We're talking about even trading your ace that you actually developed.
Yeah, but that's not like real talk, you know. Like
people are talking about.
It's just random speculation.
And I don't.
What you
and I know.
I don't like listen to that because it's not.
And I don't think they're going to trade Steele. But the fact that it's in conversation.
That's fair. Yeah.
Like it's so frustrating, man. Why can't it just be? This team needs this guy or this piece to like maybe get themselves over the top. Like it's just. I'm so tired of talking about selling. I'm so tired of
that a lot in 22. For like basically the entire time we launched.
The whole season.
It's literally all we've done on this podcast
like
since
April
we launched,
12th,
other than some brief, unrealistic hope that we all had.
Last July.
Yeah.
And for years and years, I have used prospects and all of that to have some sort of optimistic outlook. And I can confidently sit here and tell you all that I am so tired of waiting and being patient about all of that. And that's nothing against them. They're trying to make careers for themselves. Like that's nothing against them, man. It's two separate things. I'm tired of waiting, man. I'm tired of waiting. I know it sounds really dumb of me to say because this is a Cubs podcast, and for most of my life, they've just sucked.
You've waited.
Okay? I get that. But at the same time, dude, like, they set a standard in 2016. And again, I was patient. I wasn't Godfather in our YouTube chat in 2022, yelling about ownership, yelling about Jed, all these things. I was patient. I've done my part as a fan. We're sitting here talking about selling. I might as well be Allen Iverson with the practice rant right now. We're sitting, instead of practice, we're talking about selling. We
ain't talking about the playoffs.
We're talking about selling.
Well,
it's a joke, bro. It's a joke.
Your frustration's warranted, though. You know, it's warranted because you paid a manager $8 million and you were a better team last year and you're in last place.
You know,
going into August, I mean, that's unacceptable.
You know what it'd be
on
more,
every level.
Absolutely.
You know what it'd be more interesting right now than the baseball that we've watched this season and last season would be a Hard Knocks starting today. An off-season Hard Knocks on the Cubs, following whoever's in charge every day. I want the behind the scenes. I don't think they'd ever do it. The Giants look stupid for doing it, but like I want the behind the scenes of what conversations are being had, so we really can have informed conversation about this was a bad move, this was available, they didn't do this, and I don't think we'll ever get it. Theo was about as honest as you could be in that. Not that Jed isn't. But I think there's a lot of operating in silence that he likes to do.
I think he wears things a little more close to the vest than what Theo did.
Once we get past Tuesday, once the deadline is over on Tuesday, I will be back to my normal self of just ready to watch the rest of the season.
Still got 2 months.
And whatever happens.
Only 5 games out of the wild card.
Whatever happens will happen. But like the whole thing to me is just it's an absolute joke that we're sitting here doing this.
No, and it's like I said the other day, like the Cubs have put themselves in a position, and that, obviously it goes to Jed, the roster he built, it goes to the players and what they've done, and even some of the coaching staff. I don't put a lot of the blame on Craig Counsell. I think he's done a fine job with what he's got. Just the players haven't played well. But regardless, the Cubs have put themselves in the position they're at, where the front office isn't going to go get rental pieces to help this team make a playoff push. They may not keep a lot of their pieces to help this team make a playoff push. Relievers, I think, are chief among that group. But they're going to have most of the same everyday lineup. They're going to have most of the same players. Starting pitching, I think, is going to look roughly the same. They have 2 months, and I'm not saying I expect them to make the playoffs. I'm not even saying this team looks like a playoff team right now. But they'll have 2 months. They'll have like 54 games or something like that, whatever it is, after the trade deadline. Or if they want to prove Jed wrong, if they want to prove all of us sitting here wrong, if they want to prove us wrong and say they should have invested in the team and it's too quick to give up on the season, like, it's up to them at this point. It's up to them. It's not up to you being happy Cody or us saying like giving the we really believe in this, like whatever that is. It's up to the players to go out and play the last 54 games after the trade deadline and make the push themselves, because they're not getting any outside additions in to reinforce the team. Like, they have themselves and what they're gonna do. So I don't expect them to quit on the season, especially considering the wild card's still just very up in the air with 2 months to go. I don't expect Craig Counsell to just start playing all the rookies all the time. I don't expect the guys in the lineup to quit. Yeah. But it's going to be on them. They have no outside help coming unless some prospects come up and can contribute. Yeah. Outside of that, it's on them to go out and prove those guys wrong. There's no other option at this point besides the team just playing better, because they don't have anyone coming to help.
And I agree. There is an opportunity for you to cheer up Cody in person tomorrow in Schaumburg. We have a watch party coming up, Friday night watch party, Miller's Ale House in Schaumburg. Thanks to our friends at Blue Moon. We'll be there. We're going to sit there. We're going to watch the game together. We'll probably talk out some of these same trade scenarios. And depending on how many Blue Moons and what they service there, we might be in a very good mood about some of them. Or maybe not. Either way, you could show up. You can hang out with us. We'll be there. Is the King of Elk Grove going to venture into Schaumburg? Is that confirmed yet? Do we have a confirmed sighting?
It's not confirmed. Like I said, he's got so many obligations and people to see and babies to kiss and stuff like that.
In an election year, of course. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so he's
got to shake a lot of hands, kiss a lot of babies.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to try to make an appearance. We'll see.
See if it happens.
I needed the grin. I needed the smile.
Miller's Ale House in Schaumburg tomorrow night, right before the game. We'll watch the game all night long. It's on Meacham Road in Schaumburg. Not too far from Woodfield, right? Fairly close.
It should be close.
Yeah,
fairly close.
Right on, is it Meacham and it's on Meacham, I think.
It is on Meacham. Yeah.
Right off Higgins and Golf.
We'll see you there. We're going to have a good time. Hope you're there too. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast today, and we'll be back for some post-game shows, starting with Corey and Brendan coming up on Sunday night. Until then, fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.